Now these are the judgments which you shall set before them. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go out free and pay nothing. If he comes in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him.
Time out. So this is another controversial piece right here. Now these are the judgments which you shall set before them. Wait, what was the last thing we read? The law of the altar, right? All right, he was talking about the laws of the altar, right? Okay, and now we're talking about the laws concerning servants. So now these are the judgments which you shall set before them. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go out free and pay nothing. Okay, so these are not slaves, I'm assuming. Why would they go out and pay nothing, right? Why will they go free? But see, why use the word free also, Pay nothing. Why would they pay? They're the ones working, right? Let's see what this Bible has to say regarding that. All right, let's start. They're trying to give an explanation for judgments. I'm curious. The word translated here is the judgments. Translated here, the judgments is one of the several Hebrew words that describes the law or the Torah. Okay. So we're slowly building up the Torah right now. Okay. Okay. This word describes God's response to a specific action, something like an umpire's call. Laws that appear in this section are response to specific cases among the Israelites. Often, how do we know that? This word describes God's response to a specific action, something like an umpire's call. Okay, so is that what in Hebrew the judgments? Is that what it means? It's a response to something specific. Let me know if you guys know Hebrew. Okay, the laws that appear in this section are a response to specific cases among the Israelites. Often, the people would present critical or difficult disputes to Moses. Right? Because we honestly sort of just finished that a little while ago, where God created the different rulers and had them had the children of Israel come to the different rulers that he just pretty much divided and conquered the issues, right? When Moses had to render a decision on an issue that he was not sure about, he would ask the Lord. The decisions that he gave became known as case law or casuistic law. Such laws differed from the 10 Commandments, which we just read, known as apodictic law. Okay, that's what the 10 Commandments is called. So where is this case law or casuistic law coming from? Where's that terminology coming from and that labeling coming from? The 10 Commandments were general laws not based on specific cases. It is believed by some that among the nations of the ancient world, only Israel had both casuistic and apodictic laws. Okay, interesting. We can look into that. I'm curious where where the differences in the different laws came from and the terminology. If you buy a Hebrew servant, that phrase, what does that mean? Indebted or other crises might force a person to be sold into slavery. But what was to be done if that slave were a member of the Hebrew community? Okay, so slaves could be taken of people that were from the Hebrew community and not from the Hebrew community. Interesting. Moses ruled that the period of enslavement was not to exceed 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go out free. Perpetual slavery of Hebrew men and women was prohibited. What about perpetual slavery of non-Hebrew people? I feel like the children of Israel would have take a soft note to slavery, right? Because they were once slaves. which is why I don't know. I would be surprised if this was slavery in the same sense as they knew it, right? Why would they put somebody through something that they were put through and they hated and had to escape from, right? If you buy a Hebrew servant, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go out free and pay nothing. Why does this idea of having to pay something even in there? I don't know, right? But what if they didn't buy a Hebrew servant? What if they bought a servant that a non-Hebrew servant? How does that work? They can keep them forever and treat them however they want? I doubt it. But I'm sure they probably weren't under this 6-year time span. Let's keep going.
Then his wife shall go out with him. If his
Oh wait, let's go back a little.
go out by himself. If he comes in married, then
Okay, if he comes in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. So basically, you're saying you can't take their wife, right? Even though now you bought this person as a slave, you own them, you have to respect that this is his wife.
then his wife shall go out with him. If his master has given him a wife, and she has borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. But if the servant plainly says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free.
Let me go. Let's take it back. This is a lot right here. If his master has given him a wife, and she has borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's. And he shall go out by himself. Why? So he loses his children and his wife? So if he wants his children and his wife, he is essentially forced to continue to be a slave. Because he wouldn't want to lose his family, right? But here it says, but if the servant plainly says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go free. He could hate his master, but he still will stay because he wants his wife and his children. So this is sort of deceptive.
My wife and my children, I will not go out free. Then his master shall bring him to the judges. He shall also bring him to the door or to the doorpost, and his master shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him forever.
So what if masters back then purposely gave their slaves wives and then had the wife bear children to them, so they fall in love, have a family, have some sort of ownership, right, of something, right? And then obviously they're not going to leave. So then you just secured a slave for life that way. That's kind of messed up. So does this, I'm assuming this applies for Hebrew slaves as well. So this, they're talking about Hebrew slaves in this case. Let's see what this Bible has to say. Other rulings followed. A slave who was married at the time of his enslavement would keep his wife. If a marriage took place during the period of slavery, the wife and children belonged to the master. If the slave, being freed, did not wish to leave his family behind, he was allowed to make a commitment of lifelong servitude. The slave would be taken before the... Okay, they're just repeating. All right, let's keep going.
And if a man sells his daughter to be a female slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do.
If a man sells his daughter to be a female slave... No, okay, so not a Hebrew man as a slave, just a man selling his daughter, right?
If she does not please her master, who has betrothed her to himself, then he shall let her be redeemed.
What does that mean? We read about this earlier with the lambs, right? The sheep. I think it was you can redeem a sheep if you let your donkey be killed or something like that, right? If she does not please her master, I hope that's right, because I hope this doesn't mean they kill her, you know? If she does not please her master, who has betrothed her to himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has dwelt deceitfully with her. Okay, how was he dealing deceitfully with her? If she does not please her master, who has betrothed her to himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has dealt deceitfully with her. And if he has betrothed her to his son, he shall deal with her accordingly to the custom of daughters. All right, this is sort of confusing. Let's see what this Bible has to say. Women also endured the hardship of slavery. In ancient times, a family might be reduced to such a desperate state that they would sell a daughter into bondage. The law in this section served to protect the purchased bride. If she were not acceptable to her new master, he would let her be redeemed. That is, her freedom might be purchased by another. Okay, that makes sense, because we were talking about the sheep and the donkey, right? You could redeem a donkey. You could redeem a sheep with a donkey, so that makes sense. Okay. Whew, I thought it was something scary. Okay, so if she were not accepted to her new master, he would let her be redeemed. That is, her freedom might be purchased by another. Her freedom might be purchased by another? Or by purchased in the means of another woman, or with money? That's not explicit here. In no case was she to be sold to a foreign people. If she were purchased as a bride for a man's son. Okay, let's stop there. If in no case was she to be sold to a foreign people, right? So they had to keep them within the women within the Hebrew community. I'm guessing just for the safety of the women also, right? The foreign people, who knows what they're going to do in that sense. They don't have these laws, right? So to have like some sort of safety net for the women, I guess that's something. I mean, it'd be better if they weren't slaves at all. If she were purchased as a bride for a man's son, she was to be treated as the one would treat a daughter. Okay, so take her on as a full-on bride and daughter-in-law. If the man took another wife later, he was to continue to treat the purchased bride with respect. Her food, her clothing, and her marriage rights would continue. A husband who refused these necessities was to let the woman go out free. Okay, so it seems that they were okay. If you married them, you would treat them as wives. This is like Shmi Skywalker and Lars, right? Same thing. And if a man sells his daughter to be a female slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. Okay, so if in the slave department, it seems like the women have had the better end of the deal, honestly, right?
He shall have no right to sell
like
her to a foreign people, since he has dealt deceitfully with her. And if he has betrothed her to his son, he shall deal with her according to the custom of daughters. If he takes another wife, he shall not diminish her food, her clothing, and her marriage rights. And if he does not do these three for her, then she shall go out free without paying money. He who strikes a man so that he dies shall surely be put to death. However, if he did not lie...
These are laws from God, right? So what do you guys think? Do you think this means God is condoning slavery? Out of the picture. What do you guys think? Do you think this is... You think this is God condoning slavery? I mean, he's not saying, yes, slavery is good here. But he is giving laws regarding slavery, which means by giving laws regarding slavery, he is acknowledging it. Right? Why would he acknowledge it at all? He would just be like, yeah, this is not right. Or... That's what I'm saying. Especially since it's Hebrew on Hebrew slavery too. And you just freed the Hebrews from Egypt. That doesn't make any sense. Why would I want to be a slave of my own people after I just got out of slavery, you know? That's why I feel like the word slave is different. I mean, they're not even using slave. They're using servant, right? But then it says here, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. So slave, servant are interchangeable, looks like. But I feel like they probably didn't mistreat them as they did in Egypt. They were just workers, right? And they were provided for, right? I mean, the women, they were treated like if the guy liked you and took you as a wife, you were a wife. You were no longer a slave. And you were just like you know, you were taken care of like a regular wife should. But if he didn't really like you, you were freed, right? So, but there's that in between, right, where he could just keep you as a slave. But I doubt they were mistreated, right? I hope not. I mean, the guys were pierced in the ear, showing that, hey, they're owned by somebody. That's kind of crazy, right? Yeah, why would I be freed from Egypt to be lesser than my peer? Like, I don't understand that.
Shall not diminish her food, her clothing, and her marriage rights. And if he does not do these three for her, then she shall go out free without paying money. He who strikes a man so that he dies shall surely be put to death. However, if he did not lie in wait, but God delivered him into his hand, then I will appoint for you a place where he may flee. But if a man acts with premeditation against his neighbor to kill him by treachery, you shall take him from my altar, that he may die. And he who strikes his father or his mother shall surely...
What does that mean? But if a man acts with premeditation against his neighbor to kill him by treachery, you shall take him from my altar, that he may die. What do you mean, take him from my altar? Doesn't say. Take him from my altar that he may die. I mean, we have the law of the altar here, right? What we read yesterday. Let me read that really quick. Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, you have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. You shall not make anything to be with me, gods of silver, gold, blah, blah, blah. An altar of earth you shall make for me, and you shall sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep, your oxen, and every place where I record my name, I will come to you and I will bless you. And if you make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of the hewn stone, for you use your tool on it, and you have profaned it, blah, 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 blah. So I'm guessing that's meaning you're taking my blessing away from him, right? And so God is not protecting him anymore, and he will die.
Be put to death. He who kidnaps a man and sells him, or if he is found...
Okay, so God condones the death penalty.
found in
I mean, see, it's not God condoning. I see. I need to stop looking at it from a human perspective. He's not condoning humans killing people. He's saying this is what needs to be done. Right? God is saying that. So that's interesting, I guess. I wonder how God would feel about our death penalty today.
his hand shall surely be put to death, and he who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death.
Okay, let's see what the chat says. I think it's saying if a man isn't satisfied with a woman, if a man isn't satisfied with a woman, he has to find her a husband within his family and care for her like a daughter. And if he doesn't, then she should be able to be let free. If a man is, I think, if a man isn't satisfied with a woman, right? He has to find her a husband within his family and care for her like a daughter. And if he doesn't, then she should be let free. I don't know. Let's go back. And if a man sells his daughter to be a female slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. Oh, snap. So she has to stay inside the house. I'm guessing that what that means. If a man sells his daughter to be a female slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. If she does not please her master, who has betrothed her to himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. Which means, if the female slave doesn't please please the master, then she can be let go and will be paid, and then he shall let her be redeemed, right? Yeah. So essentially the master would be compensated, right? Like in place of this woman, he can have money or another woman or something like that, right? And she'll be let free. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has dealt deceitfully with her. I still don't understand the deceitfulness about this, right? How did he deal deceitfully with her when he bought her, you know? I don't really understand that part. And if he was betrothed her to his son, he shall deal with her according to the custom of daughters, right? So he becomes a wife. I mean, she becomes a wife.
And if he does not do,
and yeah, she gets all the benefits of that a wife would get, the marriage rights and all that stuff.
but is confined to his bed, if he rises again and walks about outside with his staff, then he, his mother, shall surely be put to death. If men contend with each other, and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist, and he does not die, but is confined to his bed, if he rises again and walks about outside with his staff, then he who struck him shall be acquitted. He shall only pay for the loss of his time, and shall provide for him to be thoroughly healed.
Let me read that again. If men contend with each other, and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist, and he does not die but is confined to his bed, if he rises again and walks about outside with his staff, then he who struck him shall be acquitted. He shall only pay for the loss of his time, and shall provide for him to be thoroughly healed. So even though there was an intent even if there was an intent to kill, if he wasn't killed, he will only pay for the loss of time and provide for him to be thoroughly healed. Interesting. Oh, and it's saying if men contend with each other, if they're fighting. If this was a fight, not a murder attempt. Okay.
And if a man beats his male or female servant with a rod, so that he dies under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Notwithstanding, if he remains alive a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his property.
Wow. Okay, notwithstanding, if he remains alive a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his property. Wow. And if a man beats his male or female servant with a rod, so that he dies under his hand, he shall be punished. But if you beat somebody and they die a day or two later, you won't be punished, for he is his property. Wow. And that goes because we're talking in the context of Hebrew slaves under Hebrews as well. That goes for them as well. That is crazy. I don't understand that. Like, you just left Egypt. You escaped slavery from Egypt, and you're looking at other people as lower than you. Your own people as lower than you. How? That is insane to me. So it'd go from a murder to an attempted murder in this day and age? In which case? Were we talking about? In this case right here, if men contend with each other, I'm assuming that's just they're fighting, not an attempted murder, right? They were just fighting, and then, hits were landed, someone died or didn't die, right? But here it says, if a man acts with premeditation against his neighbor, that's attempted murder, right? To kill him, or premeditated murder, like they attempted to murder, but right? To kill him by treachery, and you shall take him from my altar that he may die, right? So this looks like it didn't specify if the person died or not, right? But if a man acts with premeditation against his neighbor to kill him by treachery, you shall take him from my altar that he may die, right? So that could be attempted murder, right? It's not being specific in saying that there was premeditation and they died, It was just with premeditation against his neighbor, not including an actual death involved, right? So would it go from a murder to an attempted murder in this day and age? In this case, I think it would be either murder or attempted murder.
Notwithstanding, if he remains alive a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his property. If men fight and hurt a woman with child so that she gives birth prematurely, yet no harm follows, he shall surely be punished accordingly, as the woman's husband imposes on him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. But if any harm follows, then you shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. If a man strikes the eye of his male or female servant and destroys it, he shall let him go free for the sake of his eye. And if he knocks out the tooth of his male or female servant, he shall let him go free for the sake of his tooth.
Okay, so basically, this part here is ensuring you can't harm your slaves or your servants, right? You own them to work, and then that's it, right? So you can't harm them, essentially. Okay, well that's good to know, I guess.
An ox gores a man or a woman to death, then the ox shall surely be stoned.
Imagine seeing a stoning of an ox.
And its flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be acquitted. But if the ox tended to thrust with its horn in times past, and it has been made known to his owner, and he has not kept it confined, so that it has killed a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner also shall be put to death.
Wow. I mean, how can I say I don't agree with God? That's kind of crazy. But we don't have the right to kill somebody. I guess God has the right to say that somebody can be killed, right? But you got to take responsibility for your ox, man.
If there is imposed on him a sum of money, then he shall pay to redeem his life, whatever is imposed on him. Whether...
Okay, so let's say my ox killed someone, right? Their family could be like, hey, you don't have to die, but give us $50,000, and then you can live. That's essentially what this is.
Whether it has gored a son or gored a daughter, according to this judgment, it shall be done to him. If the ox gores a male or female servant, he shall give to their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. And if a man opens a pit, or if a man digs a pit and does not cover it, and an ox or a donkey falls in it, the owner of the pit shall make it good. He shall give money to their owner, but the
these are
dead
really
animal
specific laws.
shall be his. If one man's ox hurts another's so that it dies, then they shall sell the live ox and divide the money from it, and the dead ox they shall also divide. Or if it was known that the ox tended to thrust in time past, and its owner has not kept it confined, he shall surely pay ox for ox, and the dead animal shall be his own.
Okay, chapter 22 now.
If a man steals an ox or a sheep, and slaughters it or sells it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox, and 4 sheep for a sheep. If the thief is found breaking in, and he is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. If the sun has risen on him, there shall be guilt for his bloodshed. He should make full restitution.
What?
If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft.
What? If a man steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. Okay, that's simple enough. If the thief is found breaking in and he is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. All right, I mean, that's sort of similar today, right? Self-defense, right? If the sun has risen on him, okay, so he comes in at night and the sun rises on. Yeah, these are very specific laws, right? So when it was talking about how these were due to certain circumstances that these laws came about, that sort of makes sense, that commentary. If the sun has risen on him, there shall be guilt for his bloodshed. Wait. If the thief is found breaking in and he is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. If the sun has risen on him, there shall be guilt for his bloodshed. Why? If the sun is up, there should be guilt for his bloodshed? Let's see what this has to say. 22:3. Okay, the sun has risen. To strike the thief after the act would be considered inappropriate use of force. Okay. So the sun has risen. So that like a thief comes in the night and steals something, right? But then you catch him after the fact, after the sun has risen on him, and then you go and kill him. That's not right, I guess. You can kill him in the act. I guess because you don't know what that thief is going to be doing at night, if he's going to kill you or what.
If the theft is certainly found alive in his hand, whether it is an ox or donkey or sheep, he shall restore double. If a man causes a field or vineyard to be grazed and lets loose his animal, and it...
Why so specific with these? That means there has to be some reference point. That means these Hebrews were doing some crazy things. That's kind of that's troubling.
feeds in another man's field, he shall make restitution from the best of his own field and the best of his own vineyard. If fire breaks out and catches in thorns, so that stacked grain, standing grain, or the field is consumed, he who kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. If a man delivers to his neighbor money or articles to keep, and it is stolen out of the man's house, if the thief is found, he shall pay double. If the thief is not found, then the master of the house shall be brought to the judges to see whether he has put his hand into his neighbor's goods. For any kind of trespass, whether it concerns an ox, a donkey, a sheep, or clothing, or for any kind of lost thing which another claims to be his, the cause of both parties shall come before the judges, and whomever the judges condemn shall pay double to his neighbor. If a man delivers to his neighbor a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or any animal to keep, and it dies, is hurt, or driven away, no one seeing it, then an oath of the Lord shall be between them both, that he has not put his hand into his neighbor's goods, and the owner of it shall accept that, and he shall not make it good. But if in fact it is stolen from him, he shall make restitution to the owner of it. If it is torn to pieces by a beast, then he shall bring it as evidence, and he shall not make good what was torn. And if a man borrows anything from his neighbor, and it becomes injured or dies, the owner of it not being with it, he shall surely make it good. If its owner was with it, he shall not make it good. If it was hired, it came for its hire. If a man entices a virgin who is not betrothed and lies with her, he shall surely pay the bride price for her to be his wife. If her father utterly refuses to give her to him, he shall pay money according to the bride price of virgins.
Okay.
You shall not permit a sorceress to live.
A sorceress? There were sorceresses back there? Back then? Dang. I mean, when else would they be? But, I mean, sorceress? What are these people doing? I'm assuming that's not one of the Hebrews. You just find a sorceress walking around? That's kind of crazy.
Whoever lies with an animal.
Let's see. The Bible does not record any executions of sorcerers or sorceresses, but it does recount the deadly consequences of false worship. I mean, they had to have met a sorceress or sorcerer or something, and they had to have been put to death. Otherwise, why is this a law even? You know what I mean? Why would this even be thought of? They had to have met a sorceress or sorcerer to even think of this law being put into place, right? And if they did meet a sorceress or sorcerer, according to this law, they were put to death. So I'm guessing this probably happened at least once.
Animal shall surely be put to death. He who sacrifices to any god except to the Lord only, he shall be utterly destroyed. You shall neither mistreat a stranger nor oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt.
But you can oppress your slaves. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm saying. But I mean, they did look at them as lower. They had different laws for them, for their servants, and they marked them with an earring. Doesn't make any sense to me. You shall neither mistreat a stranger nor oppress him, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt. But what about your servants? Does this Bible have anything? No, it doesn't. Okay, I am curious. We need to look that up. Let's look that up right now. You shall neither... Okay, Exodus 22:21. And then... let's see, Exodus 22:21, and then I just typed in slaves. Okay, I think this is just, the verse. We need... Oh, they were allowed to beat their slaves? No. If they hurt them, then they let them go. You can't. Exodus 21:20-22. Anyone who beats their males or female servants with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result. But they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two. Oh, we did read that. I guess if you cause permanent damage, they're gone. Like if you break a tooth or an eye. So they can hurt their slaves. Why did the Mosaic Law allow for slave owners to beat their slaves? Why did it allow for slaves in the first place? The obvious answer is that in the social structure of ancient Israel, physical punishment was considered the appropriate response for acts of disobedience and rebellion. The text does not specifically say that the corporal punishment has to be for some form of disobedience. However, based on the larger Old Testament context, it is safe to assume that slave masters were allowed carte blanche authority. We're not allowed carte blanche authority. I don't know what that means. I don't speak French. To do whatever they wanted to their slaves. In Exodus 21, slave owners are limited in what they can do. If the master goes too far and the slave dies, the master will be punished. If the Old Testament is followed consistently, then the punishment for the slave owner might even include the death penalty for murder. Of course, if a master beats a slave and the slave is unable to work for some reason or for some time, the master has punished himself by losing the work he might have received from the slave. The implication here is that it is in the master's best interest to not be too severe. Exodus 20 to 21, 20 to 22 is certainly troubling to people with modern sensitivities. Modern people in the free world have come to view autonomous personal freedom as the highest form of good, and anything that curtails personal freedom is the ultimate evil. People may be tempted to read passages like Exodus 21, 20 to 21, and charge God with moral evil. Such charges need to be challenged, for slavery is not the only area where modern sensitivities and biblical guidelines clash. Abortion and homosexuality are two other flashpoints. The danger on, that's going down another rabbit hole, which we're not going down right now. The danger on this issue is that most Christians would agree that slavery is morally reprehensible. Okay, but what were we looking for? 21, 20, 22, 21, right? Why was, okay, here, no. Yeah, it's not talking about the stranger thing. Let's type in strangers and see if anything comes up. For ye were strangers. You shall therefore sympathize with strangers, not vex them, nor oppress them, but love them as yourselves. The condition of foreigners in Israel is shown to have been more than tolerable by the examples of Kenites, blah, 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 blah. All right. But why? It seems, the reason why I'm looking this up is because it seems like strangers were treated better than their servants. Why? Because they were strangers in the land of Egypt. They were also slaves in the land of Egypt. So I want to know why that two difference, right? Because here it says, don't oppress the strangers, but they're oppressing their slaves. Unless the word oppress is used differently here and has a different meaning. And the only way we'd know that is if we knew Hebrew and could read the actual Hebrew. Let me try one more search. Strangers treated better than slaves. That's sort of a leading search, but nothing. It's got nothing. What do you guys think it means? I don't seem to find anything here. We'll come back to it in the end if we have time, but what do you guys think that means? You shall neither mistreat a stranger nor oppress him, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt. Yet,
beast,
I mean, we went over that, right?
charge him.
You saw that they oppressed their slaves, right? They owned them. Owning somebody is, I would think that's oppressing them, you know? They weren't treated like free people. Didn't have the same laws as free people, so.
Shall not be like a moneylender to him, and your children fatherless.
Where are we?
Destroyed. Not bride price of sacrifices to any god except to the Lord only. He shall be utterly destroyed. You shall neither mistreat a stranger nor oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If you afflict them in any way, and they cry at all to me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath will become hot, and I will kill you with the sword. Your
What happens if a slave cried to God? What would happen then?
wives shall be widows.
I mean, I guess it's part of the culture. They were allowed to beat their slaves, so just not cause too severe damage, I guess. Not permanent damage, because if you cause permanent damage, you have to let the slave go. But I don't know, man. I don't understand. I wouldn't be able to take a slave, knowing that I was a slave, right, in Egypt. I wouldn't feel right taking a slave, especially a Hebrew. I mean, not even especially a Hebrew slave, any slave. I wouldn't feel right.
And your children fatherless. If you lend money to any of my people who are poor among you, you shall not be like a moneylender to him. You shall not charge him interest. If you ever take your neighbor's garment as a pledge, you shall return it to him before the sun goes down. For that is his only covering. It is his garment for his skin. What will he sleep in? And it will be that when he cries to me, I will hear, for I am gracious. You shall not revile God, nor curse a ruler of your people. You shall not delay to offer the first of your ripe produce and your juices, the firstborn of your...
Okay, so these are for specific instances. In 21 it says, now these are the judgments which you shall set before them, right? So these are judgments based on certain cases that they... Okay, so that's why they're so specific.
Your sons you shall give to me. Likewise you shall do with your oxen and your sheep. It shall be with its mother 7 days. On the 8th day you shall give it to me. And you shall be holy men to me. You shall not eat meat torn by beasts in the field. You shall throw it to the dogs.
"23.
You shall not circulate a false report. Do not put your hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. You shall not follow a crowd to do evil, nor shall you testify in a dispute so as to turn aside after many, to pervert justice. You shall not show partiality to a poor man in his dispute. If you meet your enemy's ox or his donkey going astray, you shall surely bring it back to him again. If you see the donkey of one who hates you lying under its burden, and you would refrain from helping it, you shall surely help him with it. You shall not pervert the judgment of your poor in his dispute. Keep yourself far from a false matter. Do not kill the innocent and righteous, for I will not justify the wicked. And you shall take no bribe, for a bribe blinds the discerning and perverts the words of the righteous. Also you shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. 6 years.
Yeah, there's that fixation on strangers. Yeah, they were strangers, but they were also slaves. Why? I mean, I don't understand that. I have to be missing something. right? Because why is that differentiation between a stranger and a slave, right? Why don't oppress a stranger, but you can oppress a slave? Because the reason why that is important is because the logic that God is using here doesn't make any sense. For you know the heart of a stranger, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. This phrase could also be written, also, you shall not oppress your servant or your slave, for you know the heart of a slave, because you were slaves in the land of Egypt. Why is that not sentence written here also? I don't know.
6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its produce. But the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow, that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field may eat. In like manner you shall do with your vineyard and your olive grove. 6 days you shall do your work, and on the 7th day you shall rest, that your ox and your donkey may rest, and the son of your female servant and the stranger may be refreshed. And in all that I have said to you, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other gods, nor let it be heard from your mouth.
Can't even talk about
3
other
times
gods.
you shall keep a feast to me in the year. You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. You shall eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded you, at the time appointed in the month of Abib. For
That's
in it you
Passover,
came
right?
out of
The
Egypt.
Feast of Unleavened Bread.
None shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of your labors which you have sown in the field. And the feast of ingathering at the end of the year, when you have gathered in the fruit of your labors from the field. 3 times in the year all your males shall appear before the Lord God. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, nor shall the fat of my sacrifice remain until morning. The first of the first fruits of your land you shall bring into the house of the Lord your God. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Behold, I send an angel.
What? You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk? You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread. You shall, okay, whoa. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread. What about unleavened bread? Because I'm assuming this is saying you can't eat of my sacrifice with leavened bread. But what about unleavened bread? 23:18. Doesn't say anything. Let me go back. Okay, we're talking about the feasts, right? And you shall eat unleavened bread 7 days, right? That's Passover, right? The feast of the unleavened bread. I'm assuming that's Passover. 14. Guess what? My Bible doesn't say. And the feast of the harvest, right? We just saw that. The first fruits of your labor, which you have sown in the field, and the field of ingathering at the end of the year, when you have gathered in the fruit of your labors from the field. 3 times in the year all your males shall appear before the Lord God, and you shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread. So we sacrificed a lamb to God, and you shouldn't offer the blood of that sacrifice with leavened bread. Is this saying, nor shall the fat of my, let's read the entire thing, nor shall the fat of my sacrifice remain until morning. The first of the first fruits of your land you shall bring into the house of the Lord your God. So there's the first sentence right here. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread. So offer the blood of my sacrifice. Is this meaning that when you're offering a lamb to God, don't offer it with leavened bread? Or is it meaning, it can't mean this, like don't eat of the sacrifice with leavened bread, right? Don't offer it to people with leavened bread. No, I'm assuming this means you shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread. I'm assuming that means don't offer the sacrifice with leavened bread. I'm assuming that's just saying like, hey, God doesn't need to eat food. You're not giving him a meal. To differentiate that, I guess. No fat, nor shall the fat of the sacrifice remain until morning, right? So it's not talking about giving it to people to eat with bread. It's talking about the actual sacrifice. Don't sacrifice with included leavened bread. And it should be completely burned through. No fat shall even remain until morning, right? But this is kind of crazy. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Why? But you can boil it in milk of another goat. What kind of dish? What dish are they making where you have to boil goat in milk? I don't know. I'm curious. Is that actual dish where you have to boil goat?
All your
milk?
males shall appear before the fruits of your land. You shall bring into the house of the Lord your God. You shall not.
I want to see. I'm curious. Boil goat in milk. Is that an actual dish? Can goat milk be... No. You shall not boil young goats. Oh, I guess it's going to explain it. Oh, it's a pagan practice. Okay, so it's not a dish. This verse is connected with the Passover, which may indicate that this was a mystical and unacceptable practice, which is considered unclean and unwholesome. What is that thing that Jews follow? If it's where they can't have two forms of protein on something, like they can't eat a burger with cheese and the meat, right? Because it's two animal products. What is that called? Slipped my mind. And that's sort of the same thing where you can't boil the goat in milk, but you're saying you can't boil it in their mother's milk because that's sort of messed up. Archaeologists have discovered documents in ancient Syria that explain that boiling a sacrifice of a young goat in their mother's milk was a ritual practice of the Canaanites. But this makes more sense, right? This was the heathen nation that practiced so many abominable things that's why God commanded Israel, but you shall utterly destroy them, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Other abominable practices that the Canaanites did in the worship of the god Moloch was to sacrifice children by having them pass through the fire, and also all the works of witchcraft. Okay, see, that makes sense why they had that law. If you see a sorcerer or sorceress, kill him on sight. The Lord utterly forbade these practices. These shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through fire, or one who practices witchcraft, or a soothsayer, blah, blah, blah. We're getting to Deuteronomy. We'll get to that later. Okay, well, that makes sense to me.
Not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Behold, I send an angel before you to keep you in the way and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him and obey his voice. Do not provoke him, for he will not pardon your transgressions. For my name is in him.
Who is this angel?
But if you indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries.
So they can communicate with this angel?
For my angel will go before you and bring you in to the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. You shall not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor do according to their works, but you shall utterly overthrow them and completely break down their sacred pillars.
And what we just read makes even more sense within the full context, right? We're talking about that.
So you shall serve the Lord your God, and he will bless your bread and your water. And I will take sickness away from the midst of you. No one shall suffer miscarriage or be barren in your land.
That's good.
I will fulfill the number of your days. I will send my fear before you. I will cause confusion among all the people to whom you come, and will make all your enemies turn their backs to you. And I will send hornets before you, which shall drive out the Hivite, the Canaanite, and the Hittite from before you. I will not drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land become desolate, and the beasts of the field become too numerous for you.
God is using some
Little
strategy.
by little I will drive them out from before you, until you have increased, and you inherit the land. And I will set
That's
your
smart.
bounds from the Red Sea
smart.
to the sea Philistia, and from the desert to the river. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and you shall drive them out before you. You shall make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. They shall not dwell in your land, lest they make you sin against me. For if you serve their gods, it will surely be a snare to you.
Yep. Okay, that's it for chapter 23. Do you guys have any closing thoughts? And thank you, Sky, for taking part. I appreciate it. Any closing thoughts from you guys? In the meantime, I'm going to try and look up some more regarding the strangers. Let's see. Did God favor strangers over slaves? That's a weird question, but oppress slaves. Let's see if this pulls up something. Yeah, I'm not seeing much regarding this. So, you guys, let me know down in the comment section. What do you think about this? Why is there a difference between slaves and strangers? Right? God said, do not oppress a stranger as you were strangers in the land of Egypt. But they were allowed to have slaves. And slaves were not equal to a regular person. Because they were not free. They had different laws. And I mean, by having two different sets of laws for for a slave and a free person, that shows that they're not equal, right? So, and that is a form of oppression, right? So, let me know what you guys think about that. Why is it not you were slaves in the land of Egypt, so therefore you should not oppress slaves, right? You're slaves. Let me know what you guys think about that down in the comment section. And thank you again, Sky, for taking part, and the two people watching live. And that's it for today. And I will see you guys tomorrow for Exodus chapter 24. Take care.